As we brace for more hot temperatures this summer, it may surprise you to learn that not every part of Charlotte feels heat the same way.
Some areas that can actually feel several degrees hotter, even if only a few blocks apart. WCNC Charlotte's Destiny Richards shows us how this can happen and how Charlotte leaders are addressing it.
When you're standing in the sun, it can feel unbearable, but just a few steps under the shade of a large tree and you feel the difference. I spoke with a couple of experts about why certain parts of Charlotte feel hotter than others, and it all comes down to trees, pavement, and how our city holds on to heat. As Charlotte swelters under a summer heat wave, the best way to stay cool all comes down to science. We met up with TreesCharlotte Program Director Krysten Reilly at Freedom Park, where the difference between the sun and shade couldn't be ignored.
As we're doing this interview, I would much rather be under the shade of this willow oak tree than being in the middle of the basketball court.
She says tree-dense cities like Charlotte can be up to 20 degrees cooler than those with fewer trees. That's thanks in part to transpiration, a process where leaves release water vapor, which helps lower surrounding air temperatures.
We here in Charlotte think of that as humidity, and that seems to be a bad thing, but that's actually helping cool down the environment too.
But when the sun sets, a new challenge begins. Charlotte becomes what experts call an urban heat island, and it hits hardest in the city center.
When the sun goes down, the rural areas start to quickly cool down, whereas the urban core has stored all that heat and energy from the sun throughout the day, and then it starts re-releasing it to the air in the overnight hours.
Matthew Easton is a UNC Charlotte associate professor who's also a part of Charlotte Heat Mappers, a volunteer group that tracked this last July. Using mounted sensors on cars, they recorded temperatures as they drove through the city at different times of the day. Their findings showed the hottest spots in town.
In the uptown and the other kind of hot spots are really along the light rail corridors. Kind of getting down into South End, there's a lot less vegetation, or I'll say younger vegetation.
That's part of the reason why trees matter, because unlike buildings and pavement, they don't bounce that heat back into the air.
They're not reflecting the sun's rays in the same way. They're actually absorbing that for us and doing a lot of work to combat that.
But not all neighborhoods in Charlotte have equal access to that protection. Underserved communities often have far less tree canopy than more affluent neighborhoods. Near Freedom Park, for example, mature oak trees line the streets and shield homes from the heat.
Those were planted a long time ago, and so they have the benefit of getting to an age where they provide a lot of benefits to that community. That didn't necessarily happen in all areas of Charlotte, in those like west, north, and in east neighborhoods.
To beat the heat, Reilly says your best bet is to head toward nature, especially where trees have been able to grow and thrive. Finding shade just might be a park or a greenway away.
The bigger the trees, the bigger the canopy, the more positive effects that it's going to have in cooling down the environment.